Hi guys, welcome back to Two Worlds Collide podcast. On today's episode, we have Matthew Panos. Matthew Panos was drafted by the Western Bulldogs Football Club in 2009 and returned home to Adelaide to play for Norwood Football Club in 2012. Matthew is a dual premiership player and Jack Oatey medalist. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Matthew Panos, welcome to Two Worlds Collide podcast. How are you, bro?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome. So how did the boys go yesterday? I've seen that you haven't been playing much. What's been going on there?
I haven't been playing much. Boys are going really well. Equal top at the moment with Sturt. Only 2 games left, so it's going to be a pretty interesting finish to the year because in the SANFL top is
Top 5, isn't it?
top 5,
Yeah,
but
you get
top
the week off.
top you get the week off, double chance to get into the grand final basically, and if you come second, you still get a double chance, but it's not quite as good. So we are now guaranteed to be in the top 2. It's just whether we get the first week off, but
Yeah.
not the best year for me. 4 games in, did my ACL against Port in game 149 for myself. So I was looking at playing 150, which would have been amazing. Did my ACL about 5 seconds before half time.
Is this the first ACL you've done?
Second.
Second.
So other knee.
Knee.
Other knee.
Mate,
So
throw it in. Throw it in the towel.
33, second knee since I've been in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
The first one was really bad. Contact just got sort of nailed from the side and fully blew out my ACL, MCL. Had a fracture at the top of my tibia, I think.
Yeah.
Had a lot of bone bruising and swelling, and it was bad.
How long ago was that?
2020, so nearly 4 years now.
Yeah, okay.
September 2020. It was a COVID year, so I actually did it sort of pretty much when the prelim grand final would be, but the season got pushed back. So there was still a couple games left, which meant that I missed the whole of 2021 and then didn't come back.
Came back in 2022 to kick the Steeler against North.
Yeah, it did. That was nice. It was a good comeback year.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of ups and downs with what happened throughout the season. I think it was like 650 days between games.
For you personally?
For me personally at league level, because I didn't tore my hammy really bad coming back as well because I had the hammy graft. So
On the same, because that's pretty
common.
A lot of people do that. I remember I did that pretty badly because I've had my left knee recon done as well. Same sort of incident. I went around on my right foot to kick it. There was no options there, so I swung around onto the left. As I planted on the right and kicked, someone's come through and take my knee away, and it's made my knee bend in and just had a clean snap of the ACL. I didn't do anything else. I didn't do a MCL or anything like that. But it's just a clean break and followed by tremendous amounts of pain for about a minute, and then I thought I was okay.
Yeah, it's really weird. A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
The first one I knew it was bad, but they did all the testing. They said your ACL seems to be intact. It's definitely your MCL. Like the inner ligament with my leg was like floppy.
Yeah.
I could just feel it buckle in as I was hobbling off the ground. They're like, there's probably 4 months if you do it really bad. And then had the scan a couple of days later and it's like, no, your ACL is absolutely gone. Like it's hanging on by a thread on one end. So it completely sort of gone and coiled back. And you've done the MCL and everything else pretty much.
Yeah, the trifecta.
So, it wasn't good. Whereas this one, the same sort of thing, when I was getting tested. So I knew I'd done it straight away, change of direction, playing sport and being involved in sport. I knew basically as soon as I changed direction, felt something sort of go bang. It wasn't like really loud, but I felt something and just pretty much collapsed to the floor.
And there was no contact, was it?
Yeah, I was just chasing someone.
Yeah, so when there's no contact and you're changing and you feel something in your knee, it's like 99% of the time it's the ACL.
Yeah, and it was 10 seconds before halftime, guys just running down in their D50 and I've just gone to press him and I'm like, he's going to kick straight down the line. And then for some reason he cut inside, which normally you don't do.
Yeah.
Overcommitted. And then when I changed, my momentum kept going. Got tested and then they said, I think the ACL seems to be okay. Yeah, MCL again. So I was still getting that pain on the inside.
Yeah.
Got the scan the next day and they were like, no, you've done your ACL. And I thought, well, I've played on this year, wanted to get to 150, want my son to be around the club and be at games and have him involved. And game 149, ACL surgery, was pretty much the only option. And then one of the doctors said, "Oh, have you thought about not getting surgery and doing this bracing protocol? It's called the cross bracing protocol."
Is this new?
Yeah, well, it turns out research came out about a week before I did it. So they had done a fair bit of research interstate, mainly in, I think, Sydney and Melbourne, about coming back. And they just published their findings like days before. So that night, my wife is all over it. Or when we found out, I think the next day was all over checking everything about this bracing protocol and how we can make it work and how I can play, because 12 months would have been minimum with surgery, being older and playing the SANFL. You don't have the same resources as an AFL player. I can't get in recovery boots every day and see the physio and doctors every single day. Or do your rehab. You've got to work, got a family at home. And then you've got to go into the club. So it's not quite the same. Whereas AFL players probably can come back in.
Well, they can dedicate their life to it.
11 or 12 months. So once we found out, this might be the way to go, it was still, my season was gone basically. But we came up with a plan to sort of modify this bracing protocol, called the doctor who invented the whole thing in Sydney. And he looked at my scan and said, the full rupture of your ACL, but it's close. So the ligaments are still sort of close. So in the brace, it might heal.
Yeah.
Go in the brace for 2 months and think, well, if it does heal, then I'll crack on and try and play. If it doesn't heal, then it's like, well, I've only wasted 8 weeks and it's not that bad. I was going to miss the rest of the year anyway. So it was sort of like, let's just throw everything into this. Got a team around me, physio, doctors, specialists, naturopath, chiro, everyone to ask him all these questions, coming up with all these things to try and, I guess, get that 1% or that one gem that's going to help as much as possible. So I went in the brace for 2 months, which was an absolute pain in the ass.
So what type of brace is it?
Sort of like a half leg brace, but there's dials on either side of your knee that you can change the angle. So I was in a range of 30 degrees to 90 degrees. So I could just walk, because I'd taken 3 months off to look after our son.
Yeah.
Whereas my wife went back to work. So I was like, well, I need to walk to look after him and put him to bed and chase him. He was 1 at the time, or just over 1. So I was like, I can't not do that, because the full bracing protocol, you need to be basically your leg bent back at 90 degrees for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And you're on like a scooter or crutches.
So has anyone else tried this around the world, or are you like the first?
I think I might be the first one.
Wow, that's awesome.
Well, the first one that's doing this modified. It's sort of like we had to make it up.
How interesting. I'm so intrigued to see how this goes.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Jane Rooney, who is based in Melbourne, she pretty much runs this as a physio for all the people that are going to do the bracing protocol, and she is sort of like the head of the research. Straight on Zoom with her Monday after, did my ACL Saturday night. I think I had a Zoom with her on Monday about how we can, like, we're going to attack this, how we're going to do it. And then she's said I was crazy and sort of like uncharted territory. And I was like, well, this is just how it is. And I want to now try and play this year, whether that's just one game to get my 150th, or whether the team was going well at the time, we're 4-0, you know, thinking we're going to play finals, and the team now is doing really, really well, being top of the ladder with a couple games left. So it was, how can that, I guess, translate into getting a good heal? Because basically you're in the brace for 8 weeks. You don't know how it's going to heal until you get an MRI. So I was sleeping with that 90 degrees. So basically changing the angle. So my leg was completely bent. So I had to sleep on my side. Pillow in between the legs, basically couldn't move. And there was times, you know, our son would wake up at 2 o'clock, or he's teething or has a bad night. And then in the middle of the night, I'm trying to change the dials on the side so I could actually walk, because you can't walk with it, to try and resettle him and put him to bed. So there was nights that were pretty tough. But once it was, I think after like 4 or 5 weeks, then I could go to 20 degrees and then just slowly build out to straightening. Because they said your ligament heals in your shortest form. So being in the brace, your ligament's in a shorter form. So it gives it the best chance to heal. There's no guarantees that it will, but I spoke to a lot of people. Dale Morris, who was a teammate of mine, sent him a text and said, you probably don't remember me from 12 years ago, but I know that you had a partially torn ACL and what helped, and he was adamant bone broth was the thing that got him back.
I smash bone broth, smash it.
So
I love it.
Mum was making bone broth all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm still taking it now, so I'm still in the process of coming back. It's been maybe 3.5, close to 4 months.
So have you had scans to see how it's going now?
Yeah, so I had a scan at 8 weeks. So I came out of the brace at about 7 weeks, had a scan, and there were signs of healing, which was really positive. Came out of the brace, started to run, and Jane in Melbourne suggested getting this particular scan in Melbourne that can basically look into your ACL and into the joint. So your ACL can heal, but does it heal in alignment? Is it strong? Are the fibers connected? So there's different grades of healing, I guess. So it could still heal, but it's not.
Might not be 100%.
Yeah, or the
footy worthy.
Yeah, exactly. So at 8 weeks, got the scan saying it is healing, but the quality isn't as good as this particular scan in Melbourne. So she said, how about at 12 weeks, get this scan, you understand, or we'll understand more. Her office is above the radiology centre. So then I had treatment and testing with her. So basically at 12 weeks, I went and had a day in Melbourne to spend with her getting these scans. But between 4 and 8 weeks, I was out of the brace, building strength, and then I hurt my calf, like in a run, just running laps, and I couldn't believe it because
that's the old man injury, mate.
And I was like, if I didn't know that my time should be up by doing my second knee in a few years, and now I've done the ultimate old man injury and a calf, just running a lap. It wasn't even fast.
I do that shit all the time.
So I'm like, how am I going to play a game? How am I going to come back and play and perform if I can't even run a lap? And it was a strained calf, so it wasn't bad, but I felt something enough that by the time I walked down the race and into the rooms to see the physio, it was pretty sore. I could hardly walk. So I was like, how am I going to come back? So then we've sort of modified the program a little bit to do a lot more calf and ballistic sort of work to help my calf. But then it's like, well, my hammies aren't great because of my other surgery, so I need to look after my hammies, and you need your quads really strong as well to support your knee and to support the ligaments around it. So it seems like my weight sessions and rehab sessions go for about 2 hours because there's just so many things to work on. It's not just like, oh, you can just do a generic program. It's like, well, I need to do this now for my calf, but my hammies are still bad as well, and I don't want to tear them when I come back, so I need to do more specific hammy, but then it's still the same with quad and hips. So
especially after you've like deloaded and done nothing, right? Like doing nothing is the worst for the human body, especially especially for males getting over their 30s. Like I've done a calf injury, and then I recently did one just running in Melbourne, like a normal run that I go for, 10K jog. It was cold as, pinged the calf, had 4 weeks off, came back to it, and like just struggled to get moving, like joints and everything. And I'd done a lot of stuff on the assault bike and kept myself relatively fit, but like you can't replace staying active.
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
And I see that it takes me a long time to warm up now because there's so many things to warm up for. And I see, the 20-year-old kids doing torps before training, 60 metres.
Those are the days.
Very jealous, very jealous of that. So at 12 weeks, I've gone to Melbourne, spent the day there, got the scan, and basically came back saying it was a grade 1 heel, which is best case scenario. Couldn't ask for a better result really. So saw Jane after that, did some testing, and everything was sort of pretty good. You want around 10% difference between your injured legs. So you want your injured leg to be within about 10%. It's not necessarily going to be stronger than your good leg because you've been using the good one more. So all my data and testing was really good.
So it's saying it's almost 90% of what the normal leg is.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is what you want when you want to start running and getting back into play, because if there's such a deficit, if it's at 70%, then you're just favouring one foot, and then there's chance
the other one will go as well.
Potentially, but re-injure other muscles within that as well. So the testing was really hard. She was pretty brutal, but knows that I wanted to come back, and this is uncharted waters. I think there was one other person that did it, but similar to me, but I think it was like they were in the brace for 2 weeks, and there was like a world championships on, and it was just basically he played with a torn ACL. There wasn't anything else to it. Whereas I think I'm trying to heal my ACL, knowing that I want to have a good knee post footy and for life with kids, but I also want to play as well. So it's sort of hard. I don't want it, and I don't want it to go again. So there's, I guess, a couple different layers to it. But the bone broth's been big. Mum's been making all the time. Found these ones at Coles that you can get. So having that sort of more in soups, and then got on the almost like, looks like peanut butter, almost like a paste that you just put in water as well. So different elements to it.
Yeah, I do a similar thing. I've cut the coffee away. I only have a decaf in the morning at like, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning after my cold plunge, but I just smash bone broth in it and some lion's mane, which is meant to be like really active for the brain. And I found that replacing that with caffeine first thing in the morning is far better for my activeness, alertness, and I think brain health as well, up until I probably have my first coffee now around 11.
Yeah.
But I love it. And like even the bone broth as well, a lot of other stuff I do, but helps with the gut inflammation. I think it helps with like inflammation also in your joints and stuff like that. So it's really, really
helps
good.
everything. And was like, does it make a difference? You don't necessarily know, but it's like, well, now I've come back and I've had a really good heal. So was that one of the, 1 or 2% thing that actually really helped? One of the specialists I spoke to said about a cold plunge first thing in the morning. So, which I haven't done, but
you're welcome to jump in mine if you want.
He said it's one of the best things to do, especially when you wake up. So
yeah, it's just it's in my morning routine now. I'll never go back to not doing it.
Yeah,
and especially, well, I think I've put in 70 Ks this week. I've done about an hour and a half of HIIT sessions, and I've spent maybe 6 hours in the gym. Doing, push, pull, legs, a lot of ab stuff, but a lot of running. And I've done a lot of double run days this week as well, running 15 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, around 25 yesterday. I woke up today just fine.
Yeah, feeling normal. That's good.
But I get it in the cold plunge every day at, 0.5 degrees, do 3 minutes in it, and get out, do some push-ups and some squats to get me moving. And I just feel so much better. Like the moment I get out of bed in the morning, I feel stiff. I get in the cold plunge and do the push-ups and the squats, and I feel like $1 million.
Yeah. It's
like I can run today. When first I got out of bed, I'm like stiff, sore, and everything. But it's also hard as well. Like that setup cost me a couple grand to have there, and then waking up in the morning and but yeah, I would never go back to it. Well, I would never not do it now.
Yeah.
It's pretty elite. But so tell me about now you wanting to get back into playing. What's your aim of going back into playing?
Well, the aim at the start was basically just to play 150 and get through a game.
Yeah.
So I spoke to the surgeon when I did it, and he was happy for me to do the bracing protocol. He did my other knee and does a lot of, Will Duncan does a lot of AFL ones, and he didn't push for the surgery, which was really good. He said, just go for it. And I think knowing if something does happen that I'm going to see him anyway.
Is that Dr. William Duncan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did my knee.
Yeah.
And I think he did Tex Walker's knee as well.
He does, I think, the Crows ones.
Yeah, I think he's the best surgeon in Adelaide in regards to knees.
To knees, yeah. So he did, so he didn't push for it, which was really good. And it was more about, wanting to come back and play and being a bit older and having son coming, like Oscar coming to games, really wanted that for me as something, as playing, to have him around the club, something that was special. So he was like, well, if you're going to do the surgery and be out and then not sure what's going to happen next year, if I did go down that path, then he was like, go for it. He's happy to help me. He looked at the scans as well to say, you're healing really well. This is awesome. Just keep pushing, which was good. So now it's getting into sort of actually training. So running, building, change of direction, build confidence in jumping.
So how's all that going?
Yeah, outside of the calf issue, the old man injury early, it's actually gone really well, and my knee's been pulling up fine, which is crazy. It's everything else that's sort of been sore. But when I compare it to the other one, which was really swollen, couldn't move, had so many issues, took me ages to come back. This one, like I was walking the next day, there was no swelling, was shocked when they said that you've torn your ACL, because it felt normal.
Yeah, okay.
Wasn't unstable.
Yeah.
So now that sort of carried into the rehab a little bit as well, where it's been pulling up really fine. It gets sore every now and then, but starting to get into actual training a little bit more non-contact stuff, because it's at a point where there's light at the end of the tunnel that I might be able to play, but I don't want to push it too quickly just in case something does happen. So that's going to be a bit of a mental barrier to be able to go like full bore in training.
So given that you're at the last 2 weeks of the season and then you got a 4-week final season, is there a chance?
There's a chance, yeah. The reserves are top as well, which is good. So they're pretty much locked in top spots. So whether I come back through the twos or not, I don't know, and depends how we go in the next couple of weeks. But I think there's a chance, whether the coaches think otherwise and the physios. But the whole time I've been sort of hopeful that I'll be able to get back, and despite injuries and things that have happened, I'm a pretty glass half full sort of guy and have that goal to aim and aspire to. And that's something that's really pushed me along, doing extra sessions and trying to get back. So I'm very hopeful, and I'm confident that I'll be able to get back.
Well, I bloody hope you do. But you're also a proven player in finals, right? Like, so how many finals have you played? Obviously including grand finals as well.
I don't know. It was pretty funny. As a junior at Norwood, we never made finals. At Rostreville, we lost every intercol, so didn't really have a good sort of finals big game, I guess, experience.
Yeah, because you and I played in the same Norwood team, and obviously in the same school team as well.
Yeah, so it wasn't really good for us as juniors coming through.
We had a good team. We had a good team, but we could never get over that hedge of Sacred Heart, because they were too fucking good.
They were way too good. Yeah. And look at their team and how many people got drafted. Well, they still are amazing, and they always have been. But we're at a point where I don't think we'd won Intercol as a first 18 for like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, so then the year after us won it.
They win. So that was amazing, but also felt a little bit sick inside not being able to win, and then they win it a year later.
Yeah.
I think I reckon this is my 15th year, including time at the Bulldogs and playing for Williamstown. We were really good at Williamstown. Played in 2 grand finals there, lost them both, and a prelim in the 3 years. So we were always sort of top 4 and pushing grand finals and playing. One of them was in the reserve. So first year at the Western Bulldogs, there was a 12-10 rule in the VFL. You could only play 12 AFL players. So as the first year players and rookies, we pretty much were playing in the reserves. So the twos.
Yeah.
So I played in a reserves grand final on an AFL list, and we lost. But that's because we played Box Hill, who had probably 8 players from Hawthorn, and we had about 8 players as well. So it wasn't just me, but it's crazy now that basically you would never do that. You're just going to be playing at that SANFL VFL second tier level straight away, which is a lot better for your development and players trying to play.
Yeah, obviously they're trying to make. Yeah, obviously like the VFL was trying to make the competition level, but I think the AFL takes more precedence now.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. So, and then at Norwood, I've been there 12 years now, and I think we've missed finals 2 or 3 times. I don't know how many I've played, but first year coming back, we won the flag and I was injured. So that was amazing for the club. And they had gone back to back, but not being a part of it sort of motivated me to get back and want to play.
And then how many flags have you played in?
2. So 1, 2, and then lost 1.
Who'd you lose to?
Lost to North 2018. So we had a terrible start to the year. I think we were 1-3. Then we win 13 in a row, and we were sort of raging favourites to go in. North just snuck into finals. They had a really good team, but they just snuck into finals. And then they had the 19th man issue in the prelim against the Eagles. So I think they were like 8 goals down, and they came back and won. But for like 2 minutes, they had 19 players on the field, and there was like a big controversy, and then went to the tribunal and the SANFL and the Eagles, because I think they only won by maybe
a couple of points, and when they scored the final goal, they had 19 men on the field.
Yeah, so it was like that goal. If they didn't kick that goal with the extra player, then the Eagles would have won. But how can you know what's going to happen? Yeah. So that year, we'd beaten Eagles 3 times, and we had lost to North, even though Eagles were higher on the ladder and were close to us. We were top, and they were maybe just a game off us, but we had played really well against the Eagles.
So you had their number throughout the year.
Yeah, so we at the time thought if we did get the Eagles, and when they were 8 goals up, we probably thought we were going to play them. And then I don't think we found out until maybe the Tuesday that it was North, because there was going to be, the tribunal hearing and a big controversy. But on the day, they just played so well. They were probably the hardest game I've played in. Their pressure around the ball. They were kicking goals from the boundary, getting like an Angus Monfries style bounce in the showdown. Like things like that. It was just all going
Everything was going their way. It was their day.
And the momentum, you could feel it on the ground that it was hard to come back from. I think we only lost by 2 or 3 goals, but they were always sort of ahead, and
they always kept that gap.
Yeah. So then 2022, a couple of years ago, playing them again, and then winning by a point was really good.
Kicking the winning goal.
Kicking the winning goal was nice too. So a little bit of redemption was good for what happened.
How did you go on your first winning grand final? Did you play well that day?
Yeah.
Did you get the medal?
Jack Oatey, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, so I missed out in 2013. So that sort of burnt in me, and I had the fire burning to sort of come back and play well, and had sort of everything set on just playing finals, playing well.
Because grand finals, they don't come around every often, and you're probably sitting there looking at it, lost a couple at Williamstown and went, oh shit, I don't.
Yeah, finally get the chance to win one, and I'm injured, and I'm just been delisted as well. So it was a lot of things. I was probably not in a good headspace mentally, and then decided to change that around. And I've always been really serious about football, wanting to play, but I just was able to take it to a new level and probably focused on footy and recovery and rehab a little bit more, went in the extra mile. I was doing everything I could, but now I was like, well, actually, I'm going to do a bit more. Beating Port by 4 points in front of 40,000 and winning the Jack Oatey was really special as a club. But for me, just
career highlight?
Probably winning goal in 2022.
Yeah.
At the time, definitely a career highlight. That was better than getting drafted.
Yeah. I actually, I don't really care to, I follow South Adelaide, so, we don't really play in finals too much, but when you kick that goal, I actually screamed at the TV. I'm like, yes, Panos, yes!
Probably the best thing about it was hearing other people's reactions and what they experienced at the time. And a lot of the guys had won the premierships, which were sort of 8 to 10 years before. They were in the box watching the game, and some of the stories, they said they were going absolutely bananas. Like, they were just throwing their drinks everywhere, jumping on each other, screaming. And fans since then, and particularly that night, we went back to the club to celebrate, and all the fans and families come, and just what it meant to people, and also hearing their stories of the moment and the goal is pretty incredible, and something that being in it, I probably didn't, you just sort of take it for granted, because it's, we just won a premiership, and then it's like, okay, well then pre-season rolls around. It's like, you're training again, and you sort of forget about it, and you focus on the new year. And
you don't understand the gravity of the situation. What just happened.
You don't. Yeah. So maybe when I do retire, might be able to sort of sit back and think about it a little bit more. But even yesterday at the game, probably 5 or 6 people were talking to me about the goal. Yeah. So it's still fresh in their minds, whereas for me, probably not really thinking about it that much.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those things when you retire, you'll look back on a career highlight and look at that moment with, a lot more profoundness. But I guess with a footy player, and it's probably, same thing in the military as well. When I was in the military, it's always what's happening next week, what's happening next game, where do we have to be, what do we have to do, what do I have to prepare for. I definitely think after it's all said and done, you look back on it like that.
Yeah, because you're just so, you're stuck in the moment, but you're still thinking about everything else. And, you hear the cliches all the time about, focus on this week or the game next week. We're not looking too far ahead, but in reality, that's just what happens, and that's what happens in sport and lots of other jobs and roles and workplaces. Yeah. So, I'll look back on it, on that special time. It was my wife was pregnant, but no one knew, so she was about 12 or 13 weeks. So we sort of had that little bubble as well. That, something special was on the horizon as well. So the last couple of minutes of the grand final wasn't great for her stress levels. I think she was pacing up and down the Western Stand, and when I kicked the goal, I think she just went to the back of the grandstand and couldn't watch the last minute or 30 seconds or however long was left until the siren went. Yeah. So we had that sort of special moment as well between us, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well, mate, big time players step up in big time games, and you've always been able to do that. So
thank you.
That's hey. You just mentioned before as well. You know, you sort of struggled mentally a bit when getting delisted from the Bulldogs. Can you want to talk me through that?
Yeah, it was. Well, moving away from home at 18, I was probably a little bit. I wouldn't say sheltered, but I was.
What draft pick were you? Sorry.
48 in the rookie draft. So
rookie, yeah.
I played a lot of sport growing up. Mainly
quite good at tennis, weren't you?
Tennis and soccer were sort of my main sports. And then when I got to Ross Trevor, the great Glenn Urbani, Herbs got me into volleyball. And then seeing the boys playing footy like at lunchtime, I didn't play. I still played soccer for the school, but then played footy sort of at recess and lunch, and started to grow and become good and would play marks up. And I was taking lots of marks, and everyone's like, oh, why don't you just come and play footy as well? So I was doing the soccer at 8:30, the footy at 10:30, volleyball Friday night, and then club soccer on Sunday. And then as I progressed, became better at footy. The soccer club didn't love me playing footy because it was still that, you know, footy versus soccer, old school mentality. It's probably changed a bit now. So I didn't really know that footy was going to take me this far at the time, until I sort of got to playing first and some state teams, and then had a really good under-18s year.
I just want to jump in. I remember playing a first 18 with you, and you kicked 16 goals straight one day. You didn't miss.
It was yeah. So again, when I retire from footy, I'll probably look back on those Ross Trevor days and those first 18 games when I was just sitting in the cage and had all this space, and getting delivery from you and Tom Jonas and Nels and stuff, and getting fed the ball. And probably looking back now, probably didn't help my development just being like that sort of one position play, whereas now you got to play so many different positions. But when you're playing well and kicking goals and the team's winning, you just sort of stick to it. Yeah. And I was very happy at the time.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing I'll always remember is 16 or 15 goals straight or something like that without a miss.
Yeah, it was so against Pembroke in year 11. Yeah. Still remember it. Certainly haven't kicked that many goals since. Yeah. But going to the Bulldogs, struggled living away from home, and the environment was very different. Like at school, we were really close. We had, we're all really good mates at Norwood. We're really close, and go to the AFL, it's run like a business. There's lots of coaches, some that probably don't talk to you as much as others. As a first year player, I was probably a bit shy and quieter. I wasn't
straight out of school as well. Right?
I wasn't a big personality, and the team was loaded when I went there. But there was all these little sort of divides and groups, and I wouldn't say sort of cliques, but the first year players hang out together, and guys that got drafted hang out together, and people that were friends but were older. Then you've got new recruits. So the team was absolutely stacked. That was around the time of the 3 prelims in a row when they had, like, I got drafted as a forward, and they had Barry Hall, Brad Johnson, Jason Ackermanis, Jan Siracusa, Bob Murphy, Mitch Hahn, Sean Higgins.
That was stacked.
And I was like, how am I going to break into that team? And then Liam Jones and Jordan Ruffhead and those sorts of guys were the year above me, so they've been in the system longer, in a similar sort of position. So I probably struggled with that side of it, being a bit naive, I guess. Like, I trained hard, but it wasn't like these guys are, some of them are absolute animals, and that's their life, and I wanted it to be my life and give it everything. But looking back, I probably could have given a bit more of myself to it. But then having no real support. AFL clubs now have, welfare managers, lots of development coaches, a psychologist, all these programs you can do. But I got drafted end of 2009, so 15 years ago. They didn't really have that. We had a couple of development coaches, maybe a psychologist came.
Yeah, you think how far they came. Like, you think how far we've came in the last 15 years, right?
Yeah,
with all this stuff mentally, even the concussion protocols and stuff like that. Yeah. The game has completely changed.
Yeah, and for the better. And I feel like if I got drafted now as an 18-year-old, it might be a little bit different.
The support would be a lot better. I think,
with how it ended up. And then, coaches saying one thing and then doing the opposite, tell you something. I reckon it was just before round 1 in my last year, my 3rd year, the coach has gone, we'll play you at some point. Like, you've been training well, you've got you got talent, something we don't have in terms of what I can bring to the team. you know, whether it's round 2 or round 22, we'll play you. And I was like, oh, okay, geez, that's amazing. Like, I'm going to play. Round 1, I'm emergency. I'm like, well, I'm around the mark. 3 weeks later, he's like, if you don't play better, I'm going to delist you halfway through the year. and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, a month ago, you just said I'm going to play.
Yeah.
I was playing okay. I wasn't, you know, playing amazing, but I wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, within a month, I'm going to get delisted. And it's like, how's that for your head mentally when you think you're going to get a game? So by the end of my time, there was all these little things that are sort of built up, and in the end, like, I probably should have seen a sports psychologist in Melbourne, but you're just sort of in the system. And I was keen to come back home by the end of it. So get the call. The last day they could make a decision, I get a call from a manager saying, they've delisted you. The coach will call you tomorrow. Yeah. I was like, okay. I was almost relieved. Yeah. In a way, like, I sort of didn't want to go back. It had been a tough 3 years.
Was this mid-season?
Nah, so this was at the end of the year. So I think at the time it was like October 31. The season finished 6 weeks before. Yeah. So for 6 weeks I was back in Adelaide at home, not knowing if I was, you know, they said in my exit interview I was 50-50. Yeah. To come back, in my actual exit interview, I was waiting out the front, and they just do them one by one, you know, 50-minute time slot. Yeah. Michael Talia, who ended up playing at Norwood with me as well, he comes out of his meeting, had a good year, and all the coaches walk out except for my development coach. And he's like, Matty, come in. And I said, oh, like, all the coaches just left. Do you want me to come back later? He's like, oh, no, just like a one-on-one with me. And I'm like, I just saw like 10 coaches leave that were in another interview. So I was like, oh, that's probably a sign that
writing on the wall,
not looking good. Yeah. And then they called me basically on the last day. Well, my manager did. The club didn't even tell me until the end of November. They gave me a few more weeks before actually, like, someone from the club saying that you'd been delisted. So wow, I think times in that sort of space would have changed a little bit as well. But to be honest, like, deep down, as much as I wanted to be an AFL player and play, my experience at the club, like, I was very grateful for the opportunity, made some lifelong friends that I'm still friends with. They made me a better player, but deep down I was in a probably mentally a bad spot.
Just wanted to come home.
I just wanted to come home. I was probably relieved in the end to come home, and I could just stay there. Went with Dad, picked up all my stuff, drove home a couple of weeks later, and was happy to go back and play for Norwood as my childhood club.
So what was that, 2013?
Yeah, end of 2012.
End of 2012, okay. So then you came back playing for Norwood. What was it like coming back from a AFL list and then back to a SANFL club, like free of the AFL system?
It was really good. So Nathan Bassett was a coach. They had just won the premiership, so I knew they would be good.
Gun coach.
Really good coach. Yeah. But he, in my under-18 year, he was in the state program. It was his first year out of AFL, and
So he knew you already?
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah. And he'd worked at Norwood with a few of us, sort of like one-on-one, so we had a really good relationship. So coming back, I entertained offers from other clubs, but it was more just to see sort of what my value was. Like,
Did you have any country clubs throw money at you?
No, it was just a couple SANFL clubs. So I knew Williamstown, who I'd played for, being the Bulldogs affiliate, they were keen to keep me if I stayed in Melbourne. Yeah. But I was like, oh, I just want to go home. So met with a club with Mark Ross at the time and Fred, and basically said, oh yeah, I want to come back. I want to play here. Just won the flag. The team's really good.
Yeah.
And I had probably my best preseason ever. So sort of that motivation. I was playing so well.
Probably back in an environment as well, surrounded by your family. You're mentally in a good spot. You'll probably put more into the sport because the mental side is there.
And having that learnings from the AFL, being able to bring that back in. But the team I was probably surprised at how fit and how strong and how well everyone was training. Like, I was training well, but I was a pretty good runner in the AFL team, wasn't elite, and then I was probably like one of the worst at Norwood. Like, everyone was just so fit. Yeah. It was crazy. So coming back, I played, or leading in, played really good in the trials, and then just got to games and I struggled. I don't know why. We were a bit more of a defensive team. So at Williamstown, we were very quick. We'd score like 20 plus goals every week. It was all about scoring, playing fast. The Bulldogs under Rocket. So probably some other stories there. it was just all about scoring. So going back to Norwood, it was like, we're going to win 40-30. We'll kick 7 goals, but we're going to keep the other team to 4.
Real defensive mindset.
Very defensive, which had worked because they'd gone from struggling as juniors that we never won.
Yeah.
Really, when it came to finals, the league team just sacked their coach a couple of years before Bassett came in. Hadn't played finals for a few years. We're sort of down the bottom of the ladder. So he changed everything basically within the club. So it didn't really suit me as a forward, as a lead up sort of forward, being able to read the play and see where the ball's moving fast. You can catch your defender.
So did you have to change your game?
A little bit. And he had implemented a press defensively, which took a bit of time, but I felt like we were moving the ball really well in the preseason games and we were scoring, and then it got to games and it was almost like, all right, we're just going to knuckle down defensively. So I played some really good games, but then there was games where I had like 4 touches, didn't kick a goal, and I was like, I'd never had that before. I didn't know how to deal with it. So I sort of built into some good form in the second half of the year, and then with about 1 or 2 weeks, pinged my hammy really bad. So it was like a 8-week hammy. Saw Diego, who we've both seen, who's a guru, mainly in the soccer field, but saw Diego Pellegrini. And he got me back pretty much for the grand final. So he cut like 3 or 4 weeks off my time.
He did a similar thing. We're talking on off air before. A similar thing with the grand final I played in a couple years ago. I pinged a calf, and he had me back playing. I pinged the calf the prelim, and he had me back playing the grand final. Yeah, and I was fine.
Yeah, so he's amazing like that. He gets everyone back. So I probably could have played.
Just don't want to listen to his conspiracy theories.
No, leave the soccer on your iPad, Diego. I want to see what's happening in the Serie A. But the team had won. We'd won like 11 on the trot. We were absolutely flying. So it was like, came to grand final, had missed 5 or 6 weeks, and basically were like, well, we can't play you.
Yeah.
And which, like, I just accepted, knew it was going to happen, but still hurt a little bit because I knew they were going to win because they'd been so good. I think we won by 10 goals in the grand final, and it was done in the third quarter, which then coming sort of the ebbs and flows and a roller coaster. Like, you get drafted, then it comes back down, you know, having the best time, go back to Norwood, see family. My wife now, we were going out back then, so being close to her after doing some long distance was really good. And then missing out on the grand final, it's like another dip and another low, mentally challenging. So then I really was like, well, I'm going to focus on that side of things and getting my body right to have a big 2014, which I did. It was probably my best year of consistent footy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we play finals and win the flag, and it's sort of all worth it. You forget about the other stuff. Not saying that winning changes it, but it's like, well, I've done it, lost the grand finals at Williamstown, got delisted, miss out on the team winning in 2013, and now it was just satisfying to sit back and say, like, well, I was actually a part of that, and I finally got to win something or win one after losing so much.
Yeah. It would be a special moment, especially after so many setbacks, with losing grand finals, being delisted, especially what you went through, and more of a mental aspect aside of things, being over there as well. Because, you know, knowing you when you grow up, you love being around your friends, you love being around your family, and that was a lot for you. Yeah. And then going to an unknown environment without them, family and friends, still on call, and you could go see them, but it's
not the same. I probably feel like I like comfort and being in comfortable situations, not so much now, but probably then, and you're going into like a completely different environment that's not what you expect either. Probably more like the business side and the ruthlessness of it, which is what it is. It's elite sport, but being a bit naive to that, it was like a massive shock when I got there and sort of hit me for 6.
I remember when I went into the military, I did all my training, got to my unit, and it was just like a tough male environment where, like, it almost looked like ex-convicts walking around with tattoos everywhere and shaved heads, and they were men. And like 18-year-old, or would have been 19 then when I got in there, you know, getting spoken to the way I was spoken to, and then getting pushed into an environment of heavy drinking and getting along with the boys and stuff like that. But and I've said this before on podcasts, it bred tough soldiers, and it was proven to work when we went over to Afghan and actually did the job, because we somewhat got hardened in a hard unit beforehand.
Yeah.
And then obviously all the training that comes along with it. But so I understand the aspect of going into a man's world from being a boy at the age of 18, then you're going into a business man's world. It's like a huge shock to the system. Yeah. And you just adapt or die.
Yeah, well, in your case, yeah, which would be a lot tougher. But it's still that sort of boys' club and going out and drinking and partying, and that wasn't really me. I wasn't a huge drinker. I didn't want to go out till 5, 6 a.m. Wasn't into drugs or anything like that. So for me, that side of it, I was probably not a bit of an outsider because we all had a close-knit group of friends, but just sort of probably didn't feel comfortable in my own shoes there because I wasn't like the typical stereotypical AFL footballer that plays a man's man, goes out, drinks and gets home like that sort of stuff. And that's how it was seen 15 plus years ago. So I think that aspect, not being comfortable in my own skin at the time, probably didn't help that too.
Yeah, you think how much footy and society has changed since 2009.
Yeah.
To where we're at now.
Even 5 years ago, it feels like it's changing every year.
Yeah, massively as well. Like it feels like it's obviously a different era, but a bit like a different world. Like throw a kid back now and get them to hang out with us when we were kids. Like we only had iPhones come in like year 11.
I think Facebook was like year 10 or 11 or something. That's like real social media.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends showed me Instagram like halfway through year 11 or something. And someone said that Instagram is for the older crew. Facebook is still for the young kids. I was like, what the fuck? And it just, and now there's like, I don't know, there's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Twitter, X or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, X. One of my favourite apps. Geez, that place just swings like... Man, you get to see everything on that app. Elon Musk has just made it a free-for-all. Good and bad in some sense, but yeah, it's like with that app as well, if you want to see both sides of something, you get to see it on that app.
Yeah.
Whether with Instagram and Facebook is generally censored towards the Western world of how we see it, but that app, man, it's like the Wild West. You could spend days scrolling through it. Anyway, topic for another time, but... I probably want to know as well, coming back from the Western Bulldogs, going into a winning environment and then staying pretty successful over your whole SANFL career, how have you managed to professionally stay being successful in a successful team from a personal level? And then after that, I'm going to ask you about the team as well.
I think I've always I've always wanted to improve. So every year I've wanted to focus on something to improve, to bring something else to my game. And I like playing well. I think everyone wants to play well. I really want to play well and like playing well. So there's sacrifices outside of footy, whether that's with friends or going out or doing extra sessions or recovery or physio, that sort of stuff. Like I always want to play to the best of my ability, and hopefully that what I can bring is going to help the team be successful and help other people as well. So I've probably, not in a football sense, but more, well-rounded with whether that's mindset training, visualization, thinking of different strategies within games, as well as being physically fit. So physically and mentally and emotionally fit as well. So having good balance on the outside. I was probably younger, just all footy, whereas now have a bit more balance. So
there's a bit more to life than footy now,
exactly.
Isn't there?
And as a kid, or when you're playing, it's everything. But as you get older, it's like, well, actually, there's footy only lasts so long, and is it actually that important? But
yeah, I used to sleep with a footy.
I know you did. I wasn't going to bring it up. We used to carry footies in class, in and around class all the time.
Then I went from that and then straight to the military, where I was carrying a weapon around everywhere. Completely different world.
But I think for me, always staying switched on, and I love Nord and love the club and really wanted to play well and for the team to be successful, and then bringing other elements into that, whether it's about leadership, helping others, creating a good team culture where everyone can be successful and everyone can be themselves, and you don't have to be one type of person or one type of player, which was my experience before, but hopefully helping people be able to come out of their shells and be I guess, happy in their own skin around other people, and everyone's different. So you're going to have so many different personalities, but how can we park your ego and I guess have yourself buy in for the betterment of the team?
Really, really great point about parking the ego. This book I'm reading at the moment is called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, and he talks about I'm up to a point where he talks about the team environment and making sure that you keep your ego in check, because the greater good of the team is so much more important than your ego.
Oh, 100%. And that's something that Twig, the Norwood coach now, has really brought in to us. And you always think that you don't, or you don't have an ego, or like you don't think it's like at the forefront, but sometimes it is. So it's about, I probably haven't really been around a closer team than the last few years that we've had. And I genuinely think there is no egos at the club, and everyone's bought in and is really close into the system and what we're trying to achieve. And he's at the head of that and is really, really good at delivering his message.
Yeah, I had James Fantasia in here a few weeks ago, and we were talking about what they've been able to do at Norwood in the past few years, and it sounds quite phenomenal, but it really also sounds like it's driven from the top down.
Yeah.
If you don't have good leaders at a footy club in your office positions, through to your coaches, through to your team leaders, and all speaking the same message and keeping egos in check and making sure the team comes first in all aspects, I think that's what drives a really good team, or that's what drives
100%.
and not a good team, a strong club, because that filters down to reserves, 18s, 16s, through to your women's program.
Yeah, and the people working at the club in the admin as well, they want to do the best as well for the club. I was listening to a podcast. I love NBA, so NBA players, and I think Steven Jackson, who played back in the day, was talking about how he could go into, he'd played at maybe like 6 or 8 teams, and he would go to a bad team and everything was sloppy and practices weren't like scheduled well and things would just sort of fall away. And then he played under Pop at the Spurs, and you walk in and you get greeted and it's like, this is a good franchise. This is winning. Everything's like done to the T, and they're putting extra resources in to help you move, help you fit in, get used to training, all that sort of stuff. So he said like a successful team, which really is from the top down, like as soon as he walked in, he knew like that this is on a different level to other clubs. And that's hopefully what we have been doing and continue to do at Norwood.
I read a book by James Kerr called Legacy. It's about the New Zealand All Blacks.
Yeah.
Talks about the similar sort of thing, but building up a character of a person that also makes them play well for their country. And they have a winning percentage of 78 or something, the best in world sport across all disciplines of sport. And they talk about something similar, like making sure your ego's in check, making sure the entire system fits and you fit into the system, not the system fitting into you.
Yeah.
And it's all about sacrifice and leaving the jersey in a better place. Excellent book, but sounds like you're doing something similar at Norwood now.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. And we talk about being the custodians of the club at the moment, but then sort of building that for the people to come in the next generation. Because for me, I've been there 12 years plus juniors, but as soon as I leave, then someone else is taking that Guernsey and playing. Like I'll be forgotten, and the next person comes in and they've got to sort of continue that path.
It's all about leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, making sure the jersey's in a better place than when you were in it.
Because I was hoping personally to, and Jace Bode, who's captain, 3-time premiership player, spoke about, leaving the club in a better place, leaving the jersey in a better place, which is what I would want to do as well, because I'm the oldest at the club by about 5 years, so I'm sort of like the dad at the club, the old man, the Foss. But the club was really good when I started. So Nathan Bassett had brought that in over a couple of years. I think it was his second or third year when I came back. So that was sort of building, and hopefully, whether it's in a better place or not, it's in hopefully a more well-rounded place with lots changed since then. We've got wheelchair team, women's programs, seniors and juniors, more junior teams.
Women's programs are going nuts.
Yeah.
Especially in the amateur league. Like, it's getting bigger than the male programs, and I know the amateur league is struggling to fill umpires because there's just so many games now because the women's are just exploding, which is good, like growth for the game, and I'm definitely all for it. It's awesome.
It's good to see, and I think at the start it was probably hard to sort of fit it in, but in terms of like the boys and girls meshing and merging, it was probably a little bit awkward at the start, not knowing sort of how to approach each other in the gym. But now it's just like we have functions together all the time. We've got one next week. We do
one club. It's one club.
It is. It's one club. So the guys and girls get along really well. We watch each other's games when we can. So we've sort of built the club up through that too.
And away from footy, what do you sort of do to unwind from footy, away from footy?
Well, it's hard now having got an 18-month-old little boy running around, so that's very busy. You keep your mind off footy with him. So as soon as you walk in the door or wake up in the morning, it's all about him, which is amazing. I absolutely love it. Love being a dad. It's probably the greatest experience and the most rewarding, and you really understand how precious life is. And I think, wow, why did I take life so seriously? Why was I not so invested in footy? Because I would want to instill in him, if you want to do something, to invest and pour your heart into it. But at the end of the day, it's not the be-all and end-all. There's a lot more to life. And seeing him grow up before your eyes it's incredible.
Do you think that you had to become a dad to realise that?
I think I probably realised it before and do a lot of self-reflection on what's happened and where I want to go, but it sort of has certainly reiterated how it is. And I guess just seeing my wife go through pregnancy, birth, being a mum, like breastfeeding, waking up every 2 hours at the start to feed every single night, and you can't, no off days, no off hours, you can't not. Seeing that firsthand was inspiring for me and making me want to be as successful as I can and be as good of a dad as I can, to see how amazing she is and what she's gone through, which then is translating into wanting to do a good job at work, but then wanting to play football so that they can come, because there's a lot of sacrifices that they have to make. Me being at training, missing. I work at a school and have to do Saturday sport, so it might be Saturday sport into a game, into like a function after, and that's a whole day gone where you miss out and a lot changes, but she's with our son the whole time. So makes me, I guess, push a bit harder to try and come back, particularly with the knee now and trying to play like it's almost for a bigger thing. And I want, for my 150th, I want to run out with him in my arms, and I want him to experience that and have that memory that, for me, I'll definitely remember that forever.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like that a lot.
So there's no real time for hobbies to be honest. So I work at St Ignatius as a sports coordinator, which is something that I really like doing and enjoy. I love sport. I love football, but I love sport as a whole and lots of different sports, and I've played a lot growing up. So seeing kids develop and progress and play and put things that they've practiced into games and succeed and make state teams and club teams and try and go on and play it at a high level is awesome. So between that and family life, there's not much else. We sort of get dictated to by what the family's doing when nap times are and things like that. But heading into, I guess that'll probably change post-footy. I'll have a bit more time on weekends, but at nights as well to, he'll probably start riding a bike soon and go on the park a bit more. But I'm just love spending time at home with them. Love taking the dog for a walk and taking the two boys.
The family, man.
The boys go out for walks as much as we can. So it's like the other aspect of the knee is like not playing and doing all this rehab, and it's like, can't walk the dog, can't take our son out and do those sorts of things that I guess I would normally do, which puts more pressure on my wife. So there's that sort of guilt there as well. So
is your wife looking forward to you retiring from footy?
I think so.
Yeah.
After 15, we've been together nearly 15 years.
So she's been there the whole time.
She's been there literally from the start.
So it's been such a massive part of both your lives.
Both our lives. So I think, when I do retire, she'll be happy. More so, I think, to have more time, obviously at home, but seeing me go through injuries and watching me get injured would be pretty tough as well. And go through rehab and have surgeries
because like you just said, especially having surgeries and injuries, it just like suffocates your life.
Yeah.
You're literally like post surgery. You're almost couch ridden, bedridden for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
and then even trying to come back from a 21-day calf or 8-week hamstring. Can't walk the dog for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's all those
struggle
little
to bend
things.
over, struggle to clean. Struggle to put on your pants for the first few weeks. Like it fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's so bad. After my surgery, I think I was on crutches. Couldn't drive for 6 weeks. Was on crutches. My knee was so bad that Will Duncan said it was basically like a car crash injury when he went in there to operate. So yeah, she's putting my pants on, almost holding my hand in the shower with my legs like out of the shower.
They see you at your worst.
At absolute worst. Tie my shoe, putting shoes on, that sort of stuff. Had to drive me everywhere. Then has to take time off work. So all these things that, as a person that's had the injury, it's hard because you're injured, but everything else is sort of happening for you.
Yeah,
it's like everyone else has to go above and beyond.
Yeah, there's a
you.
There's a big roll-on effect. That doesn't roll on to, well, it rolls onto you, but it also rolls onto the people around you.
Yeah. She loves watching me play and has been a huge part of my success, even with after I tore my ACL, she was straight on to like bone broth, straight onto the surgeon, had called all these people the next day, basically organised the week. This is what you need to take. I've bought these supplements. I've spoken to a naturopath. These are the best things you need to take.
Yeah.
This is the best specialist. This is who ran the bracing thing in Sydney, got me onto Jane. Like there was all these things that she did to go above and beyond
admin queen.
Yeah. She's
nice.
very, very good. Very good at that. But in short, I think she'll be relieved when I retire.
Yeah, okay. Well, when you do retire, you need to get onto this knees over toes program that I've got on.
Should have been on it the last 4 years.
Yeah, mate. I tell you what, I went from, because I've had a shoulder recon from the military. I banged it up over in Afghan, so I had that when I got back, and then I was trying to play footy 2015 or something. Did a knee. It's never really been the same, and then I tried to start running long distance races, and I ran 150, sort of, just challenged myself off the couch, did it, and won 150k race, and then there was a 100k race that I sort of trained up for, but I didn't train up for because I was like 2 weeks before I was drinking and shit like that, so I wasn't really taking it too serious, and my knee just got immense, just amazingly sore, and I could hardly move it, and at about 60k it stiffened up, so I sort of hobbled in the last 40k. But since then, I've got one of my friends got me onto this knees over toes program, and I've been doing it. And I banged in like 70Ks this week and a whole bunch of other stuff. And what would normally be very, very stiff and sore, my knees at the moment are just like, I ran 25K yesterday, got attacked by a fucking dog at the end of it.
I saw that on Instagram.
It was just like, I don't get knee pain anymore. So I've got a 115K race coming up in late October. So that'd be a good test from it, but I think I'll go really well. But you'd have to get onto that. It's all about strengthening the knee, not so much the quads and ham. You know what I mean? It's really
specific
different.
to knee. Because everything at the moment's probably around the knee to keep it strong I guess in a footy sense. But I'll definitely be on it when I retire. Yeah,
it's all about getting the full flexion in. So really, really deep squats. Like I could do stuff before where I could not squat down and get the full flexion in my knee. Now I can, stand like Afghanis do when I was overseas. We sort of take a knee and they just do that full body squat, and just they stay there for hours, and it's like a normal position for them, which is really, really good for stretching everything out and being in that position, especially for your lower back. So I've actually learned to do that. Now I should have looked at them when I was in 2012 over in Afghan and went, maybe I should do that. Look, I've got a couple of questions for you to wrap this up. I got a guy called Dominic Henderson on yesterday, which with these episodes, I release them every weekend. So your episode will be released in 2 weeks' time. His episode will be released next week because I'm a few ahead of the game here, which is bloody good. But his question for you was, how did you go mentally after being delisted from Western Bulldogs and coming back? So we've already answered that within everything. So The next question, I wanted to move on, and I've got 3 questions for you, so we'll probably be at another 10 minutes. But what advice would you give to a 15-year-old footballer that has aspirations to play either SANFL or AFL?
I'd probably say to enjoy it. Enjoy that time in your life where you're playing footy, whether that's at school or say at SANFL level or whatever you're playing. Just cherish those moments of playing with your best mates and the people that you love, and you're spending, say it is Ross Trevor, you know, and you're in year 10, you're playing with your best mates every week, and it's just so much fun because as you get older and progress at a high level, the fun sort of gets taken out and it's a bit more
business
serious. It's a bit more business. It's more ruthless, but it's also about winning. So if you're not winning and you're not playing finals, then it's almost like, well, we didn't make finals. That's
you're failing.
Yeah, you failed that year. So I would say just to enjoy that time as much as you can and create as many memories. But if you do want to take it to the next level, then focus in on that. Don't make it your life. And that's the be all and end all, because if you don't get drafted, there's not that many that get drafted every year. You don't want to see yourself as a failure for not reaching, I guess, the ultimate success in the sport. But do everything that you can to give yourself the opportunity to get drafted and be in a position. So whether that's training hard, doing extras, you might have to sacrifice some things. So doing those little things to make yourself better. But I guess as you're coming through sort of under 15, 16, 17s, try and enjoy it as much as you can, because it changes as you get older. Yeah.
Just makes me look back on what I was doing at that age, running as much as I can, sleeping with footies, doing dumb shit. I also sort of got sucked into partying a bit, which is fun, but I probably wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, I've often thought, what if I didn't take it as seriously? What if I had a bit more fun? What if I had a better balance, or went out more? Those sorts of things. And it's like, well, maybe I wouldn't have had the career I've had now. Maybe I would have not got into footy, or not liked footy, or not got drafted. Then it's like, well, you don't know how it would have gone. So although I probably would change some things as a whole, I guess it makes you who you are in the end.
Yeah, this brings me on to my next question, which I often think about because I ask it so much, or I ask it to every podcast guest, and I always think to myself, would I say something to myself, because you don't want to play with time or history, because if you tell yourself something, then it might not work out the way it is, and you might have a completely different life, and it might be different. And I don't know if I'd want to risk that, because I quite enjoy the life I have now. But if you could go back to 18-year-old Matthew Panos and give him one bit of advice about life, what would it be?
I'd probably give a lot.
But it's only one bit though.
I think just have fun. Just have fun. Don't take it too seriously. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your youth, because it goes really fast.
Yeah.
So just have fun. Don't take life too seriously. The only other thing I'd probably add to that is to just be comfortable in your own skin. So have fun, but be yourself, whether that's different to the person next to you. It's probably a bit more accepted now, not necessarily in footy clubs, yes, but in society as well. But have fun, be yourself, and enjoy that time.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I like the one that be comfortable in your own skin. No one's told me that yet. It's a good one.
Because I feel like for me, as I said a bit earlier, I probably wasn't comfortable the whole time. You're trying to play AFL, but deep down I wasn't actually comfortable with who I was and trying to fit in with other people. But I'm like, that's not really me. Whereas it probably even took a year or two at Norwood, and it's like, well, I'm just going to be myself. That's who I am. And probably something my wife's really strong at. She's like, this is who I am. This is how I was brought up, and how if some people don't like it, it's not in a bad way. It's just that's me. I'm not going to change everything about me for someone to
because
say
of someone's opinion.
I might like you better. It was like, well,
Unlucky.
Actually, I need to stay true to myself and be who I am, because at the end of the day, you only have one life. So if you're not going to be true and happy with yourself, then I guess what's the point of trying to please everyone else?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know if I would actually tell myself anything. I might probably just look at myself and just say strap in,
Yeah.
you're in for one hell of a ride.
Yeah.
And just, turn around and walk away. Because at 18, I was joining the army at 18, 2 years after I was over in Afghan. 3 years later, 3 years after I was over in Afghan, and 2 years later I was discharged from the army. And like I think in that time I lived a life of what most people would live their entire life with experiences. So, I seen a lot early and went through a lot early. So for me, I don't think I'd tell myself anything. I'd just tell myself to buckle in, because you're in for one hell of a ride. Now, obviously the previous podcast guest had a question for you, so you're going to have a question for the next podcast guest. She is a bronze medal winner at the Commonwealth Games, really competitive competitor, and she's a record holder as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting her in. I've given you a bit of information about her, but without giving her away, what's your question for her?
Question was around, I guess, what instigated her change in sport. That was quite late. I guess it would almost, by the time she'd changed, it almost have a career in something different. So I guess what motivated that change, and I guess after it did happen, were there any regrets at the time, thinking, what the hell have I done? Why have I done this?
Yeah.
And sort of how she overcame that to be so successful as well.
Yep. Good question. I didn't have that on there, so that's good.
Nice.
But the good thing about our podcast, I didn't get to one. I got to the mandatory questions, but I had like 10 questions here to get to, but we didn't get to any of them. So
good.
That means it went
well.
Yeah, that means it flowed well and it was good. But mate, Matthew Panos, thanks for coming in. We haven't seen each other in,
it's been a while,
maybe over a decade. So let's not leave it a decade to next time to catch up. But Matthew Panos, mate, thanks for coming in, and I hope everyone enjoyed.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for more information, head over to our Instagram at Two Worlds Collide Podcast. Take care.